Welcome to Question It, the podcast where we rethink health, wellness, and personal growth. I'm Kevin, your host, chief inquisitor, and sometimes guinea pig, exploring fresh paths to a better life. Let's dive into today's episode and get started. I'm really excited to share this episode of Question It with you because it is a Google Notebook LM interpretation of my original article called Equality and Peace Fail When Superiority Reigns. So I really think that this episode begins to explore the ideas around really making life easier and happier for everyone, not just you, the listener, but the entire world. So I'd love to hear what you think of this artificial intelligence, AI version of my article. So without further ado, here you go.
Welcome back for another deep dive. We're going to be looking at this fascinating connection between equality and peace. And get this, the inspiration is from, a scene in Outlander.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the time-traveling drama. We're going to be looking at an episode of the Question It podcast as our source for today.
Okay.
Where the host, Kevin, unpacks this whole idea.
Well, it might seem like an odd connection at first glance. A historical fantasy show.
Right.
And, real-world peace-building efforts.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what makes this deep dive so intriguing to me.
I know. It's those unexpected links that really kind of get you thinking.
For sure.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, can you kind of set the scene for us from Outlander? What's going on in this episode?
Okay, so picture 18th century Scotland.
Right.
So lots of tension between the Scottish Highlanders and the British.
Yeah.
And in this particular scene, a British officer is meeting with a Scottish clan chieftain.
Okay.
And this officer is just incredibly condescending.
Oh.
He's constantly belittling the Scotsman's culture, his appearance, even like his food.
Oh, wow.
It's like he's trying to put him in his place.
So we're seeing like that classic power dynamic where he's asserting his like perceived superiority.
Absolutely. And, the Scotsman is clearly, trying to maintain his dignity.
Yeah.
But it's like he's constantly being put down.
Yeah. I mean, it's that feeling of being looked down on that can really stick with you.
Oh, absolutely. And that's actually what Kevin points out in his podcast.
Okay.
He highlights that the British officer's parting comment, he says, how are we ever going to make peace with such an ill-mannered people? And it just perfectly encapsulates this problem. It's
almost like he's using ill-mannered as a code word for inferior.
Exactly.
Just creating this divide between them.
Yeah, and that belief in, one group's inherent superiority over another, that just becomes like a major roadblock to actually achieving peace.
Do you think that this idea resonates beyond just the historical context of the show?
Well, Kevin definitely thinks so.
Okay.
He connects this scene to like so many different things. I mean, from, historical tensions like we see with the British and the Scottish to ongoing social issues like racial inequality or gender dynamics.
It's a bit unsettling.
It is.
To think about how often we might be enacting these dynamics without even realizing it.
Right.
But what's the link here?
Yeah.
Between these superiority struggles and achieving peace?
Well, Kevin's point is that true equality and therefore lasting peace is impossible.
Okay.
As long as, you have some individuals or groups who believe they're inherently superior.
Right.
It just creates this imbalance of power and respect. And that then leads to resentment and ultimately conflict.
So it's not just about like overt acts of aggression, but it's also about those subtle ways in which we assert dominance.
Exactly.
Or we diminish others.
It's about recognizing that these attitudes are just woven into the fabric of many societies.
Right.
And they often stem from historical power structures.
Okay.
And that can have some really far-reaching consequences.
So how does Kevin connect this idea to something like police brutality?
Well, he argues that when law enforcement officers view themselves as inherently superior to the citizens that they're supposed to be protecting, it creates this dangerous power imbalance.
That makes sense. You can see how that assumed superiority coupled with the authority of their position could lead to abuse of power.
Exactly.
Okay.
And he says it's not just about tackling individual biases. We need to look at the ways these beliefs become embedded in systems and institutions.
So it's not just about changing hearts and minds.
It's not.
It's about dismantling the structures that perpetuate these inequalities.
Exactly.
But before we get into those larger systemic issues, I'm curious about how this plays out on like a personal level. Kevin mentions that feelings of personal inferiority can actually drive people to cling to group superiority.
Yeah, it's almost like this paradox he highlights.
Okay.
He's saying that like our yearning for individual worth can often get twisted into seeking superiority over others.
Oh, okay.
So it's like instead of addressing those feelings of inadequacy directly, people try to compensate by identifying with a group that they perceive as superior.
So it's like boosting their own self-esteem at the expense of others. It's like those high school cliques where people are trying to fit in by putting others down.
Totally.
It's all about social hierarchy.
Yeah.
But playing out on like a much broader scale.
And with much bigger consequences.
So what's the alternative?
Yeah.
If clinging to superiority is ultimately self-defeating, how do we break free from that?
Well, Kevin offers this really powerful alternative.
Okay.
He suggests that instead of approaching interactions from like a place of judgment and comparison, we should assume inherent value in the other person. Just like a radical shift in perspective.
So instead of looking for ways to assert our own superiority, we're just acknowledging the worth and dignity of each individual.
Exactly.
Okay.
And he says like that simple shift could be the key to unlocking, a more peaceful and equitable future.
So it's not about ignoring our differences, but it's about recognizing that those differences don't make anyone superior or inferior.
Exactly.
Do you think a single scene from a show like Outlander can offer that much insight?
Well, it definitely serves as a compelling illustration.
Okay.
And Kevin really uses this scene as like a springboard to explore these ideas in more depth. He brings in like historical examples, sociological research, even personal anecdotes.
So it's about using that fictional scenario to spark a broader conversation.
Yeah, about power.
About equality.
Peace. The very real dynamics that we see playing out.
It seems like Kevin's goal is to encourage us to examine these dynamics in our own lives.
In our own lives, for sure.
And to see how we might actually contribute to creating a world where everyone feels valued.
Right.
And respected.
Absolutely.
It's a lofty goal.
It is.
But it feels incredibly relevant.
So relevant.
So how do we move from this theoretical understanding of assuming value to actually putting it into practice?
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's something that we can definitely delve into further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Yeah, it really is a question worth pondering. How do we actually move from theory to action?
Right.
Kevin suggests we start with self-awareness.
Oh, okay.
Really paying attention to like our own thoughts, our feelings and our behaviors in those interactions.
So we're talking about noticing when we're judging someone or feeling superior.
Exactly like that British officer in Outlander.
Okay.
But it's not about beating ourselves up.
Right.
It's more about recognizing it.
Okay.
And then understanding like where those thoughts are coming from.
Yeah.
And then choosing to act differently.
Okay. So let's say I catch myself making like a snap judgment about someone.
Yeah.
What's the next step?
Well, he talks about cultivating empathy.
Okay.
It's about like stepping outside of our own limited perspectives.
Yeah.
And genuinely trying to understand the other person's experience. Like imagine stepping into their shoes.
Right.
Considering their background, their struggles, their triumphs.
It sounds like active listening.
It is.
Like really tuning in to what the other person is saying?
Yeah, both verbally and non-verbally.
Absolutely.
Just like being present in that moment.
Okay.
Putting aside distractions, giving them your undivided attention.
But isn't there like a danger there of just absorbing other people's negativity?
Right.
Or allowing them to like walk all over us?
Yeah, that's a really valid concern.
So how do we balance empathy with setting healthy boundaries?
Well, empathy doesn't mean like becoming a doormat.
Right.
Or like condoning harmful behavior.
Yeah.
It's more about understanding where someone is coming from.
Yeah.
Even if you disagree with their actions.
So recognizing their shared humanity doesn't negate the need for boundaries.
It doesn't.
So it's about holding that tension. Acknowledging someone's humanity is also holding them accountable.
Exact. And it's not always easy.
Yeah.
It takes practice, conscious effort.
It sounds like we all need to become more skilled at navigating those complex dynamics.
He thinks so.
Mm-hmm.
He believes that this ability to connect with others on a deeper level,
Yeah.
to see beyond our differences,
Yeah.
recognize our shared humanity.
Yeah.
That's essential for creating a more peaceful and just world.
Okay, so we've got self-awareness, empathy, active listening as like key tools for dismantling the superiority complex. What else? What else can we do?
Well, he also emphasizes challenging our own biases
Okay.
and assumptions. We all have them,
Right.
Shaped by our upbringing, our culture, our experiences.
Yeah.
But those biases can really lead us to make unfair judgments.
So it's about recognizing that we all have those blind spots.
Yeah.
Those preconceived notions that could be clouding our judgment.
Exactly. And it takes, conscious effort to uncover those biases and start to dismantle them. It's about questioning our assumptions, seeking out diverse perspectives.
Being open to learning and growing.
Yeah, rather than clinging to our own limited perspectives.
Okay, so curiosity, empathy, challenging our biases. It's quite a toolkit.
It is.
For personal growth.
It is.
But Kevin also talks about recognizing each person's unique value.
Yeah.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, it means shifting our focus from what's wrong with people to what's right with them. It's about seeing their strengths, their talents, their potential.
So instead of focusing on like their flaws or their shortcomings, we're looking for the gold.
Exactly.
Okay.
And when we do that, it not only transforms our relationships, it creates a more vibrant and thriving society.
It's like we're all pieces of a giant puzzle.
Yeah.
And each piece is essential.
Absolutely.
Okay, so assuming value isn't just a moral imperative.
Right.
It's also about tapping into the full potential of humanity.
Of humanity, exactly.
But we've talked a lot about personal transformation.
We have.
What about those larger systemic issues, like we talked about police brutality? How do we dismantle those systems of oppression?
Well, that's where things get even more complex.
Right.
But Kevin believes that, individual transformation is an essential part of systemic change.
Okay.
He argues that as more people embrace this idea of assumed value, it's going to lead to shifts in social norms and expectations.
So it's about changing the culture from the ground up. And that can manifest in so many ways.
It can.
It could be about speaking up against injustice, advocating for policy changes, supporting organizations, or just choosing to live our lives in a way that reflects our values.
Right, aligning our actions with our beliefs.
It feels overwhelming sometimes, though.
I understand.
These problems are so big.
Yeah.
They feel so deeply ingrained. Where do we even begin?
Well, Kevin really emphasizes focusing on what we can control.
Okay.
Our own thoughts, our feelings and behaviors.
Okay.
He encourages us to start small.
Right.
Make changes in our own lives and in our immediate spheres of influence.
So instead of getting bogged down in despair, feeling paralyzed by the enormity of the task.
Yeah, just focus on what you can actually do something about. And it might feel like just a drop in the ocean.
Right.
But those drops can create ripples.
It's like that butterfly effect.
Exactly.
A small change in one place can have a huge impact.
We never know how our actions might inspire others.
Right.
Or what kind of ripple effect they might create.
Okay, but I'm still wrestling with this idea that recognizing each person's unique value isn't just about creating a more just world, but it's about ensuring our survival as a species.
Right.
Is that overly dramatic?
Well, it might sound dramatic, but there's a growing body of evidence to support it.
Really?
Think about climate change,
Okay.
resource depletion, social unrest. All these interconnected crises are threatening, the very foundations of human civilization.
So it's not just about creating a nicer world.
Right.
It's about addressing the root causes of these threats.
It is. And Kevin believes that our inability to recognize and value the interconnectedness of all life is at the heart of it.
So this superiority complex isn't just causing conflict and division. It's putting our survival at risk.
That's what he's suggesting. And it is a sobering thought.
It'll...
But it also presents a really powerful opportunity.
Okay.
If we can shift our mindset from one of domination and exploitation to one of cooperation and mutual respect, we might be able to avert disaster and create a thriving future for all.
So it's not just about being nice?
It's not just about being nice.
It's about recognizing that our own well-being is linked to the well-being of others.
Exactly. And that realization can be incredibly motivating.
Right.
It shifts the focus from self-interest to collective interest.
It's a powerful shift in perspective.
It is.
I'm curious, though, does Kevin offer any concrete examples of what this looks like in the real world?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's something that we can explore in the next part of our deep dive.
So we've talked a lot about the theory.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of us are probably wondering, like, how do we actually put this into practice?
For sure. It's one thing to talk about it.
Yeah.
But it's another thing to actually live it out.
Right. Right. What does assuming value actually look like in our everyday lives?
Well, Kevin suggests starting with curiosity.
Okay.
So, like, instead of just making those snap judgments, we should be asking questions.
Yeah.
Actively listening to the responses and trying to really understand the other person's perspective.
So being present, being engaged.
Exactly.
Not just waiting for our turn to talk.
It sounds simple enough.
Right.
But I think a lot of us struggle with that.
Yeah, especially with all the distractions and everything.
Especially in this day and age, yeah.
But you're saying the rewards are worth it.
Absolutely. When we genuinely listen to others, we're validating their experiences.
Okay.
And creating space for genuine connection.
I like that.
And, we also open ourselves up to learning and growth.
It's shifting that whole dynamic
Yeah.
from like, I'm right, you're wrong, to let's explore this together.
Exactly. And that's crucial for building bridges, creating a more harmonious society.
So curiosity is key. Yes. But what about those times when we encounter people whose beliefs or actions directly contradict this whole idea of inherent value?
Right.
Like, how do we respond to prejudice, discrimination?
It's tough.
Violence, even?
It's definitely more challenging in those situations.
Yeah.
But also more important to hold on to this principle.
Okay.
He emphasizes, like, responding with empathy. And understanding, even in those tough situations.
How do you find empathy for someone
It's hard.
who's actively harming others?
It is. And it's not about condoning that behavior.
Okay.
But it's about recognizing that even those who perpetrate harm, they're still human beings.
Yeah.
With their own stories and motivations.
So it's about seeing the humanity, even in those who seem to have lost touch with it.
Exactly.
But let's be realistic, we're not going to change the world overnight.
Yeah, you're not.
So how do we stay motivated?
Yeah, how do we stay hopeful?
When things feel so big.
Well, Kevin reminds us, we don't have to do everything, but we can all do something.
Okay.
Even small acts of kindness and compassion can make a difference.
But focusing on what we can control.
Exactly. Our thoughts, our words, our actions.
Yeah.
And trusting that those small acts of goodness can contribute to something bigger.
That's encouraging.
It is.
It's like trusting that there's a ripple effect.
There is.
That we might not even see.
Exactly.
But it's happening.
It is.
And that's what matters.
And celebrating those victories, no matter how small.
Yeah.
Finding joy in the process. Remembering that we're not alone in this.
Yeah. There are others out there.
There are so many people and organizations dedicated to this.
It's finding strength in that collective effort.
Exactly. And being patient with ourselves and with the process.
Because it is a process.
It is a journey, not a destination,
right,
but a journey worth taking.
Yeah, I love that.
Along the way, we discover the power and beauty of recognizing each person's unique value.
It sounds like Kevin's vision is ultimately one of hope.
It is.
For a world where equality and peace aren't just ideals, but they're realities.
Lived realities, that's the goal.
And you think it's achievable.
He believes it is, but it requires that collective shift.
Right, moving beyond our egos.
Embracing something bigger than ourselves.
It is a beautiful and inspiring vision.
It is, and I would encourage every listener to think about what small step they can take today to embody this idea. It could be something as simple as smiling at a stranger.
Okay.
Listening with an open heart.
Yeah.
Or speaking up against injustice.
Just taking that first step.
And trusting that it can make a difference.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
And remember, the power to create a more just and compassionate world lies within each of us.
Okay, so what did you think of this AI interpretation of my original article? It really gets you thinking about how we humans are interacting with each other. So I'd love to continue the conversation. So please go to the show notes and click on the link to join this episode's uchiTribe, and we'll dig deeper into solving some of the world's biggest challenges. Until next time, peace, love, and connect. Thanks for joining me on Question It. Remember, growth happens outside your comfort zone, so keep experimenting and embracing change. If you enjoyed this episode, connect with me in the show notes, leave a 5-star review, and request to join this episode's uchiTribe. Until next time, peace, love, and connect.